They just killed this card! Hey Riftbounders, TCG Moon here again, and we just got an FAQ for Spiritforge, and I would just say we jump right into that. So here we are with Reflexive Triggers and Falling Star and Ecaphian Rain, because that's gonna get changed, and I've read into some lines already, so you don't have to, so we can skip the boring part, and everything that's in here is telling us Falling Star and Ecaphian Rain now read differently. So we don't activate Ecaphian Rain or Falling Star, and then these instances go on the chain as reflexive triggers. They are now chosen at the start of the spell when we cast it. So we can counter this with the new green spell that counters targeting, and we counter the entire spell because these spells now target how often they do things. Also, if we look in this FAQ into the rule 7351C, that is the revised text of Deflect, this is not optional. So just for triggers, this was optional, intended to be, but for each time you choose, you now have to pay an additional cost. So that's gonna be interesting, but we don't have Ecaphian Rain into I bound something of mine or kill my own things, and then you have to target my Poro like 6 times and recycle 6 runes. That can't happen anymore because we choose our targets immediately as we play Ecaphian Rain or Falling Star. Cards that tell you to play other cards from your deck is the new part we're going into with the new Rek'Sai deck. That's gonna be a lot more playing from the top of the deck or any other locations. So the question: Origins card that instructed players to play cards from the deck like Promising Future and Blind Fury received an errata to banish those cards before playing them. Will Spiritforge cards with similar abilities received a similar errata? Yes. So basically the yellow Rek'Sai that can play units from the top of the deck banishes them before you play them. Same goes for the Rek'Sai legend that also banishes one, then plays it, and her signature spell also banishes before you play it. And the Reinforce of Origins also banishes a unit before we play it, reduced by 5. That's just to avoid probably some ruling troubles and some questions. I think it's good. It doesn't change anything about the cards. It just makes it more clear how to play out these cards. So we changed reflexive triggers, or we just took away that some cards are reflective triggers. So what is a reflective trigger? We get to reflexive triggers and Spiritforge cards. Question: should the reflexive trigger system introduced in the Origins FAQ apply to any card in Spiritforge? Yes. This is another one where I don't know the finer point of the rules. You're probably already playing these cards correctly, but the machinery of the rules requires a slight different wording than we thought. Reflexive triggers identify by do this language, create new chain items to handle things that need to offer players a chance to react or just need to happen later than the rest of the spells or abilities. This impacts 2 cards in Spiritforge, both of which let you play something and then try to do that thing. So we have Arise, that's Azir's signature spell, which made Sand Soldiers, or makes Sand Soldiers, and then readies 2 of them. It's just, we play these units, and then the reflexive trigger of readying them gets on the new chain, so we probably can react to that, but I don't think there is much you want to react to if you don't already react to the spell itself. Also, Rel Magnetic is a card that has a reflexive trigger because it says if you do, then do this, so we can attach an equipment to her. Spiritforge Functional Errata. We're now getting to the cards that made people question how they work, if they are permanent and things like that, I guess. I haven't looked into the entire document. So we have Blood Rush, the most questioned card. Should Blood Rush say this turn? It totally should, and I think it's also here in the document. I hope. It should. So they just forgot to add this turn, so they added give a unit assault to this turn, and that's just 2+ might while it's an attacker. God bless, because if this card wasn't this turn only, it would be a nightmare to track, and it would be probably broken as hell. Another card we got, Death Grip. A card I'm pretty sure will see a lot of meta play. What's the question about it? Is the first friendly unit on Death Grip a cost or a target? Then do I kill it, and what happens if I don't? Death Grip uses a non-standard wording that we normally avoid. Precisely because of these ambiguous, we're issuing errata to bring it more in line with how other cards and abilities work. This errata establishes that 1. The friendly unit is a target, not a cost. 2. It's chosen along with another friendly unit and killed as the spell resolves. 3. If you don't actually kill it for any reason, either because it's no longer a legal target or because you replaced its death with an effect like Sonya's Hourglass, you do not give the second friendly unit any might. You still draw 1. We've introduced a paragraph break to make that clear. So, Death Grip revised text. It's a reaction. Kill a friendly unit. If you do, give plus might equal to its might to another friendly unit this turn. Draw a card. So, we just got clarification. Basically, all these erratas are not nerfs so far. It's just a clarification how they should work. And this makes sense. I feel like it should be more of a cost to kill it. But in this game, if something is a cost, it states do this as an additional cost. So this was clear, but it doesn't read as clear if you are not into card games like that. Then, Edge of the Night. I think it was the equipment, right? The gear, yes. Does Edge of the Night auto-attach ability work? Because unattached gear and abilities are recalled, Edge of the Night does a strange little dance on its way to becoming attached, returning to your base while its ability is on the chain, and because of that, dance is no longer here when the attachment is supposed to happen. We need to change its wording so it can still find the unit you choose, but we don't want any confusion here. The card works exactly the same as it did before. The hidden rules still require that you choose a unit at the battlefield where you played it from face down. For the reason, we've included reminder text in the errata. So we just put in here in columns here. So we know we attach the Edge of the Night to a unit on the battlefield where it's hidden. Chenna Savior. Wait, what can you errata on that? Can Chenna play effect because used to heal any units without enemy units present? Because it says you need to push away a unit. Triggered abilities in Riftbound can be placed on the chain unless all required targets cannot be chosen. They can resolve and perform part of their text without all targets still being available, but all targets must be available to put them on the chain to begin with. This is weird, and we generally try not to force players to know it. We think 99% of players probably accept that Chenna can heal their units without enemies present, so we are meeting that exception with a simple up to, similar to up to errata for trigger abilities in Origins. So she just says, when you play me, heal your units here, then move up to one enemy unit from here to base, and before that it was we move a opposing unit to the base. Pretty simple, just to clarify. Checks Unmatched. Checks Unmatched grants quick draw to equipments in hand, which works as far as letting you play them as reactions, but does not work so well when the equipment hits the board and the other part of quick draw tries to take effect. We're fixing that. So, if I'm reading this correctly, with checks having deflect, your equipments everywhere have quick draw. This is basically a small buff. Or it's how he was intended to, and they didn't think you can't play equipment from anywhere else, and so they were like, yeah, we want to also have quick draw on everything. K to the Arm. Can K to the Arm give himself his own might and keywords? That was a really big question if this card is good or not. So let's read into that. Friendly unit does probably include K to himself, but that wasn't the intent behind this card. Kato cannot throw himself after all. It was simply goof that Kato made it out the door without the word another, and the gameplay is so divergent from the design intended we are changing it to fix this error. So they just nerfed this guy to death. Otherwise he would be broken. He would be a 4 energy 6 might unit while attacking. So here's deflect, and he would go to deflect too if he could target himself. When I move to a battlefield, give another friendly unit my keywords and might equal to my might this turn. So he cannot throw himself into that. So that's a good change. Another question. Does Kato give keywords he gained during play? What about might bonuses from various sources like equipment? Yes, Kato gives this current keywords and additional might equal to its current might to the unit you choose. Later change to Kato, don't matter. What the unit gets is locked in as the ability resolves. Tiana Crown Guard. Wait, what could be the question about that? Question. Can I still conquer and hold battlefields while my opponent has Tiana? Do I get conquer and hold triggers? What about drawing a card instead of getting the 8 point from conquering? Riftbound rules and card text use the word score in a couple different ways. You can score battlefields. You can also score points as on cards like Tryndamere Barbarian. The difference between these two is usually clear. But Tiana muddles them more than we anticipated. Tiana is solely concerned with points and doesn't interfere with the process of conquering or holding battlefields. You can still conquer and hold battlefields and get your conquer and hold triggers. That's pretty important because this woman just said you can't score points, and now she says you can't gain points, which does a lot regarding rulings with holding and conquering, like we just said. And it's good that she is not that broken. But me, as someone who would like to enjoy Ornn, that's quite sad. So does Forgotten Monument work the same way Tiana does? Forgotten Monument works differently from Tiana, and we agree that's confusing. That's part of why we decided to issue errata for Tiana and not Forgotten Monument. So here we actually can't score, so we don't get any triggers. But on Tiana, if she's on a battlefield, we get our triggers even if she's there. Then we also have Yon Blademaster. He gets an errata as well. Just to clarify if he can... Just to clarify what an open battlefield is, I guess. So when I conquer a battlefield that was uncontrolled, that's just another wording for open battlefield. But I get that it could be confusing what a open battlefield is. Then we got rule clarifications about Draven, so probably about battle, right? What does it mean to win or lose a combat? Winning and losing combat is a system that we are innovatively left out of the most recent rules update. Here are the conditions under which you win, lose or tie a combat. After combat damage has been dealt, if neither player has a unit remaining at the battlefield or both players have units remaining, combat is a tie. If both players do, attackers are recalled. If only one player has units remaining at the battlefield, that player wins the combat and the other player loses. Draven triggers if he's among the units that survived. It doesn't matter whether combat damage was actually dealt, only there was a combat showdown and only units were left after combat damage. So if you push away something while it's attacking a Draven, or a Draven is attacking, and we push something away, return it to hand or kill it or whatever, we win combat even though no combat damage was dealt. That's all that's about. So this Draven could score a lot of points just by fight or flighting. If I win on the attack and conquer, does this happen before or after I score? Before or after conquer effects? Draven's ability will trigger and resolve before you gain your regular point for scoring the battlefield and before any conquer effects are triggered. This means that you can't win from 6 points by conquering a battlefield with Draven without having scored all other battlefields. You will gain your point from Draven, then the game will see that you're at 7 points and give you a card draw instead of the conquering point. That's so important, so you don't get cheesed by Draven by attacking into the first battlefield and just winning at 6 points. Like, what the hell? That would be busted. Pickpocket. Can pickpocket kill a gold token? Yes, he can. Why wouldn't he? But why would you do that? So here you have it. Yes, he can. We have Rumble Hot-Headed. That's the one that plays from graveyard, right? Or from trash, rather. Yes. Can Rumble Hot-Headed choose a mech token to recycle? If he does, where does it go? Yes, he can. This is a minor gap in the rules. Main deck cards are recycled to the main deck and rules are recycled to the rune deck. But tokens are actually either of those things. Well, be clarifying in the future rules updates that tokens inherit the recycle destination of the types. So a token that's a unit or a gear is recycled to your main deck just like any other gear. It then vanishes as a token due anytime they leave the board, but it still counts as the unit you recycled and Rumble can check its might. That's important, that this thing works like in Magic. So we still check if something went underneath a deck in our trash, so tokens don't disappear if they die. So they actually die, they actually get recycled, they actually get bounced, and we get triggers of that as well, and their might can be checked, which is also important for this Rumble. Swelsongur, Nunu's Flute. What can you probably mess with this thing? Does Swelsongur copy the text that the unit has gained from other sources, such as the soul granted by Cleave? What about text is gained from other equipment? No. Swelsongur only copies the text that actually printed on the unit. This is an ambiguity in the current rules, which refer to appending and removing rules text without reference to whether the text is original or unit or not. The keyword here is actually copy, a system that will be fleshed out in the future rules update. For now, we just let you that copies of the objective or the text take on their original traits without regard to any subsequent alternations. Swelsongur grant the unit additional copies of the abilities of the equipment, so putting 3 Swelsongur on the same unit will give that unit 4 total instances of its ability, not 8. So now we get to the spicy part. Since I see in the Philios here, they probably gonna pair that up with the flute, and we will see. Philios Exalted has an ability that triggers when I attach an equipment to him and tells me to choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. If I attach the flute to him, does he have the second copy of this ability time for both to trigger, and do I have to choose different options? He does have the second copy of his ability in time and will trigger. So if we equip the flute, we get 2 triggers of Philios. The one that hasn't been chosen this turn restriction applies separately to each instance of his ability. So you could choose the same option for both, but you'll have to track with options you've used for each copy of this ability. So we can choose the same, but we don't have to. So a Philios with this thing could turn out pretty broken, actually. Because if I ready 2 runes with my first ability, I can buff a friendly unit with the second, and do this again. You know, so if you have multiple of these, this guy just combos off. Cards that reduce might. Question. I heard that cards that reduce might will no longer say to a minimum of 1. Does that mean origin cards like Stupefy will receive an errata? No, this is a change to our design philosophy beginning with Spiritforge, but origins card will not maintain their functionality. Question. Does this mean that a unit might can go to 0 or below now? Unit mights could always go to 0 or below. It was just really hard to actually make it happen. For example, if a recruit was a Trifarian Warcamp, it should have 2 might. It's base 1 and 1 from Warcamp. If I got hit with Stupefy, would snapshot a -1 might, reducing the recruit's might to 1. If the recruit then moved away from Trifarian Warcamp, it would lose the +1 might bonus and end up at 0 might. It's much easier to make it happen with Spiritforge cards though, so it's worth reviewing the rules for units with 0 or less might. Next question. Does a unit with 0 or less might automatically die? No? Wait, no? Units can stick around on the board with 0 or less? They just killed this card. Useless. I thought it could kill a Y in response to her effect. Wait, what? So let's go back here. No, units can't stick around on the board with 0 or less. They will die if they take any damage, but 0 is not a valid amount of damage, so it takes 1 damage to kill a unit with 0 or less smite. We realize that this is a little weird, but it's important to us that cards like Frigid Touch cannot be used to actually kill units, only weaken them. They just killed this card. This card went from being broken into the trash. Or am I wrong? Does a unit with negative might contribute negative damage to might in total combat? No, negative might is also treated as 0 might for the purpose of dealing damage. But that's true value for raising it back above 0, so a unit with -3 might would contribute 0 damage in combat, would die if it was dealt 1 or more damage, and would require 4+ might to get it back up to 1 might. Okay, so getting it up is harder if it's in the minus, but a unit with 0 might doesn't die and just needs at least 1 damage to be killed. That's a crazy change, or like, what is change? A crazy ruling I didn't know about. I haven't looked into that at all. I thought that they just die like in Magic. What? Oh, we're getting to Ezreal Prodigy. It's probably about reducing cost, is it? What cost does Ezreal Prodigy reduce? Does he reduce repeat cost, accelerate cost, equip cost? So, Ezreal Prodigy reduces additional costs that are optional to pay. If we look into the rulebook, that is not that much. That should be just repeat and accelerate by now, but let's look into that. These will generally use both the words additional costs and the word may. Repeat and accelerate are the two main sources of optional additional costs, but Ezreal can also offer a discount for one of oddballs like Blast Corps Cadet. Okay, that's also an additional cost of the 2 drop to make it a 3 drop and deal 2 damage or anything like that, I think, and there is a may with it and not an additional cost. Ezreal can't reduce equip cost, that's quite important, otherwise that would be broken. That's an activation cost for an ability, so neither optional nor additional. There aren't currently any optional additional costs that apply to activating abilities. What about deflect? Aren't those optional now? No, Ezreal won't help with deflect cost, and deflect is not optional. Deflect is a mandatory additional cost, meaning you must pay it if you want to finalize a spell or ability that chosen something with deflect. So, since he says only optional additional costs and deflect is mandatory, you cannot reduce that. Oh god, hostile takeover. What can you... Wait, that's a long paragraph. If you use hostile takeover to take control of my opponent's only unit at a battlefield, will there be a showdown and will it be a combat? You start a non-combat showdown. Okay. This ruling applies anytime you have a unit at a battlefield when your opponent still controls that battlefield but doesn't have any units here. Yes, that can happen. Hostile takeover and Stormbringer are the easiest ways to do it. There's a gap in the current rules that leaves the situation without an obvious outcome. We plan to address that gap in the next regular rules update. This issue is surprisingly complex and we're not 100% sure what the answer will be when we're done. So they don't actually know how this card exactly works. I hope we get an explanation soon in the new ruling update. And we also get new things that can give cards repeat. So what about find your center and repeat and the cost reduction? What part of a spell does repeat ability cost to repeat it? Is it the entire effect? If I use temporal portal to give find your center repeat and pay the cost while its cost is reduced, do I have to pay 3 and 1, or how does it work? So overall, here stated, for our first copy of Find Your Center, we just pay 2 less, so we paid 1. And if we repeat it, we don't pay 1, we need to pay 3 for it. So we do this on repeat with 4 energy to play this card. Last but not least, Weapon Master. Is it mandatory or is it optional? It's optional. They just did something wrong in the rules and it was never supposed to be mandatory. You can choose if you want to equip or not. So if you enjoyed this kind of videos, consider subscribing. Also leave me a like so you are up to date with rulings and everything around Riftbound. Also check out my vlogs, and I see you in the next one.